Hello, good morning. Thank you all for coming for this webinar presented by which is going to have like the guest speakers Artemi Serda and Christian Poole. Artemi is a professor of physical geography in the University of Valencia. Christian is head of the forestry department in the Nelson Mandela University in South Africa. We are going to have like a very interesting presentation from the both of them today. I'm going just to pass on to Zofia, who's going to do a little bit of housekeeping did this morning for this webinar.
Yes, thank you, Philippa. Good morning. Afternoon now, everybody. I would like to welcome you also from Eurosite. As Philippa mentioned, this will be a webinar on the role of fire in shaping sustainable landscapes. As you can see on the screen, your audio and video are disabled, and please submit your questions into the Q&A function. If you accidentally submit your questions in the chat, that's also fine, but for easy access, please try and do so in the Q&A function, and they will be answered after the presentations are done. As you can probably tell, this webinar is being recorded, so we will be able to distribute it to you and also put it on Eurosite's website. And yes, the length of the webinar is 1 hour. So the agenda for today is, yes, for now it is the welcome words and housekeeping. After that, we will move on with the presentations from Artemi and Tian. After the presentations are done, then we will have the question and answer session, but please feel free to add your questions while the presentations are ongoing. And then after the Q&A session, around 1:30, we will close the webinar. So that is it from my side. I will stop sharing, and then Philippa, I give it back to you.
It's going to be a quick transfer because I would like Artemi first to take the stage. Artemi is involved, he's not only a professor in the university, he's involved in many initiatives, leading a number of different groups from, fire prevention to soil degradation. I'm sure he's going to speak of some of them now. And Tian is also an extremely experienced person in the fact of, different initiatives on fire prevention, and is also, a part of the coordination team for a fire congress that's going to happen at the end of this year. And I'm sure that he's going to speak about it at the end of his presentation too. Now, the floor is to you, Artemi. I hope you all enjoy it. You are muted, Artemi, sorry.
Okay, here I am.
Now we are okay.
Thank you, Philippa. Thank you to the Eurosite and the Eurosite Secretariat for the invitation. I think it's going to be a very good exchange of opinions and a good discussion because Professor Tian Paul from South Africa and me, we are from different areas of the world, even though the climate is quite similar, but the human use is completely different. And I think it will be a good example to see that fire and humans are well connected. Okay, I go to share my presentation. Okay, here it is. Okay, you can see the first slides. The first objective of my talk is that you will see fire not as an enemy, which is what we usually see in developed countries, that fire is a problem, while fire is part of the nature and the earth ecosystems. This is the global emissions estimated for 13 years, and you see that these emissions from fire tell us where the fires are coming from. Then usually the people from the Mediterranean, we think that is from the Mediterranean. Is not true. It's from the tropical areas where more emissions are and where more fire is present. This is an example of the distribution of the fires. It will take a few seconds that this slide will run because it's a video. But I take the advantage of this time to tell you that fire is present in the Earth's ecosystems for the last 400 million years. This means it's quite recent because also the vegetation, the plants, the life in the planet, in the continents is very recent. It's only 10% of less than 10% of the Earth planet time. But since we have vegetation in the continents, we have fires. We found this by the charcoal. There are sediments, there are rocks that were formed like the Carboniferous rocks due to fire. Then from the geological point of view, we have fire for long. Also, fire is present in the hunter-gatherers societies. Was used. We are the only animals in the planet that can manage fire. Then this is what makes us humans. Probably when we talk about why we are humans and which is the difference with other animals, it's not the tools, it's not other topics that has been used in sociology to distinguish us from other animals. Is fire what distinguished for 1 million years from other animals. We are not only Homo sapiens, other species, they developed the use of fire, but always humans. Then if you see again this video, there is a seasonal trend in the fire, but we can say that the planet Earth, for years we were mentioning that the planet Earth should be planet water, and in my opinion, after 40 years in science, is that there are water in other planets, but there are no fire. And then probably we need to give another name to our planet. It is planet fire. Okay. This is an example from Spain. I just put this to see that you will remember where I'm coming from. I'm coming from the eastern coast in Valencia. I'm professor at the university. And this is the forest fire we have every year. Then it's everywhere. In fact, if you see this graph, you will see that we have fires every year, usually close to 100,000 hectares per year. But there are some years that are much more, like 500,000, like in the year 78, in years like 85, 89, 94. And then after that, we have much less fires. But this is because the effect of the extinction. Firefighters are better and better, and they control the fire. But this is increasing the risk in the future. In the future, we will have much bigger fires because there are more biomass available. In fact, we are talking now here in the Mediterranean about the 6th generation forest fire. They don't need high temperatures. They don't need high wind. They don't need low water vapor. They create, when they burn, their own climatic conditions, meteorological conditions, and they run very fast just because of all the biomass that give a lot of energy to the fire. Then this is because abandonment mainly. One other issue is this graph is very similar. In columns you have the amount of land burned, but in the line, in the blue line, you have the number of fires. Then the number of fires is growing. But what we do is we extinguish many of them in the first hours. But this is increasing the risk in the future. Okay, another issue, Spain again, this is distribution of the rainfall. We have a very wet area in the north, Pyrenees or Galicia. And if you see now the number of fires, does not fit with the climatic conditions. The wettest area in the northwest of the Iberian Peninsula is where more fires there are. And this is because the cultural issues, like, for example, the property size. Many farmers, they like fire in their own small properties. And then sometimes in Europe, 50% of all the fires in Europe, not in Spain, in Europe, are coming from this little region in the northeast of northwest of Spain, right? Where is the St. James Trail. Okay, and this is because the farmers, they like to use the fire. Most of the forest fire here are because land abandonment. You see this land abandonment, fields that are 3 or 4 years abandoned, they burn very fast. These are some of our publications, and I'm very fast able to tell you that the Mediterranean is shaped by fire, by grazing, and by cropping. We developed a process of land degradation in the whole Mediterranean for the last 3,000 years. You see, Greeks, Romans, they developed a very intense agriculture with a plow, and they developed cities. And then this is Volubilis in north of Morocco. It's a very modern city with sewage system, and they removed all the forest. This is a typical view of the Mediterranean, a land without forest. This is an example. You see this path is done by the wheels of the carts. Then it's for millennia. We have been here removing the vegetation, destroying the soils, but a big change. In the 20th century, we abandoned the land. And then the recovery is huge. The water in the rivers came back to be clean without sediments. In fact, some of the towns abandoned were covered with vegetation. We even found that many of the foundations of the bridges are being lost because there are no sediments. They are you can see them on the surface, and this is very dangerous for the bridge, but this is because there are not enough sediments. All the sediments are now in the mountains controlled by the vegetation. But suddenly we start to have a new problem, which is a lot of vegetation is big forest fires. Fires remove vegetation, and the vegetation, without vegetation, we have more erosion. This erosion transports the sediments, the water to the sea very fast. How we studied, I always like to show this because we were very innovative in methods like rainfall simulators, small, big. In the Mediterranean, rainfall is unexpected. We also use it natural rainfall with plots like that. In general, our research is based on this scheme. Then humans destroyed the soils, destroyed the vegetation, changed the landscape. And we are shaping the landscape in a different way. First, because we removed the vegetation. Now, because we are using the fire, or the fire is out of control. Then our research showed this. After every fire, you have an increase of soil erosion. Every fire results in more erosion. But also we found that after 4 to 6 years, the erosion is again under control. We've researched this also in the Pyrenees with some colleagues from the Pyrenees Institute of Ecology. And we found that after forest fire, always there is a decrease in solute, in sediments, in all the material delivered by the runoff, and the runoff was going down, okay? We can say that this is a small crisis. This is one of the plots that we burned. This is the plot after burning, and this is the plot 1 year later. Then fully recovered vegetation. And then we found that if we compare different type of managements, scrubland, barn, meadow, abandoned, fallow cereals, or shifting agriculture, we can divide which is the highest erosion rates and the lowest one, and then the barn plots are not the worst. It's much worse to plow the land, to abandon the land, or to apply a fallow system, the don't crop for 1 year, or to use shifting agriculture. Then we researched not only that vegetation is important, it's the structure of the vegetation. And then we studied the patchy distribution of vegetation after forest fire, and we found that when you have this type of patchy distribution, there are runoff in the area between the plots or between the plants, but then you have some water that is moving from the bare area to the covered area. And then runoff is not continuous. There is a discontinuity in the runoff, and this reduces a lot the soil erosion. This scheme shows you this. Then we don't have runoff running on the top of the soil. Is the water is infiltrating in the patch. Then we researched it a lot, which is the effect of the patch distribution, and if we found that it's very positive. Then when we recover areas affected by forest fire, we need to apply this, that our afforestation will be in patches, because it's one way to imitate nature. The other thing that we found is that vegetation is very much adapted. These are the seeds collected the day after by ants after the forest fire. You see all the seeds coming from the cone, they are collected. This means that the life is adapted. The rodents, the reptiles, the insects are adapted to the forest fire, and also the vegetation. See the recovery of Aleppo pine after a few months, the sprouting of palms, all this vegetation that you can see here. You see the 3 months after the forest fire, there is a big recovery of vegetation. Plants are adapted to forest fire. They sprout or they germinate better. And if we remove fire from nature, then we are selecting the plants that will grow. Then this is asparagus species that after 1 week, you see how much vegetation is recovered. And also what we found is that biodiversity is huge. After the forest fire, sometimes we have a bigger number of plants than before. Well, this is even the palm trees, the palms are sprouting, and also making flowers. They are adapted to the fire, then take advantage to sprout and to produce the seeds. Well, this is the vegetation recovery. They sprout, they germinate, they cover the soil. These areas were affected by fire 15 years before my pictures. These are the last two ones, and they show that the vegetation in the Mediterranean is very well adapted. Then one other key issue here is that it's not only vegetation and how it's distributed. It's also that in the Mediterranean, humans were present for long. Then we studied a couple of watersheds that were affected by a fire in 2008, and for many years we followed the amount of sediments moving. Then we pay attention especially, this yellow line is the one that we are going to follow with pictures. We have two watersheds, one with terraces and one without terraces. This is the effect of humans here. We built a lot of terraces. Then in these two watersheds, we did the research with small plots, bigger plots. We collected sediments in the terraces. This means at different scales to understand the flow of water. Here, for example, in the bottom of the valley, we did a lot of sampling. You can see in the pictures after each rainfall event how the sediments were moving from the slopes and were collected in the bottom of the valley or in the slope, but always in the terraces, built by the illiterate farmers more than 100 years ago, sometimes 1,000 years ago. And then you can see here the effect of this ponding in the abandoned fields that collect all the water, all the sediments, all the ash coming from the forest fire. Then here you can see the accumulation of sediments in the bottom of the valley. Then we make a scheme very fast, and we calculated how much sediments were moving the first year from a terraced slope and a non-terraced. And then our results show that if you have terraces built by illiterate farmers long time ago, your erosion rate is reduced in 10 times, 1 order of magnitude. This is really unbelievable how the most efficient system to control soil erosion is done by farmers that they did for another purpose. And what we see in the landscape is this, more and more and more. When somebody here tell us the forest is burned, I used to say the abandoned fields are burned, because most of the land was used for cropping. It's a human landscape. You can see here all these terraces everywhere in every after forest fire, like in this picture. The first part in front of us is the fire affected land with terraces, and in the back you don't have terraces. No, because you don't see, because there are forests now. But if there is a fire, you will see a lot of terraces. Everywhere you can find terraces. And what we do, this is the plans from the European Union, from our government, what they should do. What we should do after forest fire. Then after 10 years, they remove the vegetation and then plant Aleppo pines. which is a big mismanagement, then I can tell you that most of this is an effect of the afforestation in the 60s, already 60 years ago, and still we have the problem. What I can tell you in a nutshell is that what we do because the forest fire, or in the name of forest fire, is much worse for the protection of the biodiversity, the plants, the fauna, and especially of the soils. The soils are very much affected by the restorations that have no sense, like this one that the government planted Quercus ilex, which is a sprouter. I spent a lot of money with plants coming from a nursery. They die after 1 month in the planted. And then in the back, you have all the sprouting, natural sprouting of the same plant. Okay. Then big mismanagement in the post-fire management here. And then we also studied the effect on runoff by different plants. And what we found is that the plant that produce more erosion, more degradation, more runoff is Aleppo pine, is the one that is more used for afforestation. Then we need to change the policies also here related to the forest fire. Okay, I've been trying to be efficient.
Well,
and I should be in time of
I think it's time maybe to give the floor to Tian, because he said he also had a very long presentation.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
If we have a little bit more time, maybe you can show a couple more slides, like maybe also answering some questions, I would say.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Artemi. Okay, now I would like to give the floor to Tian.
Thank you, Philippa. I think I'm just waiting for Artemi to unshare, then I can share mine. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. You will note from my title there, I titled it The Role of Fire Management in Shaping Sustainable Resilient Landscapes. The picture here on my opening slide, of course, got nothing to do with fire resilient landscapes. It's simply an overhead picture of the campus where I work, so you can see that I work in paradise. So what I would like to talk to you about today is maybe just outline the problem that we have, and then just look at legislation, explain the current situation in South Africa, and then maybe just look at some of the technologies that we use, and then also look at, to conclude my talk. So if we can look at what is bothering us, I made a statement here and I said sustainability of landscapes are dependent on many eco-services. But if you exclude fire as one of these services, then you will run into a situation where not only the ecology of the area, but also the people living in the area and the way that people live in the area will be affected. So in our case, we really deal with a big challenge in the sense that South Africa is a big country. We've got 6 different biomes in the country, and each one of these biomes has got different fire requirements. We also sit with a problem in South Africa in the sense that the gap between the rich and the poor in South Africa are huge. I think it is probably the biggest difference in the world. So you find that in some sectors of the country, fire management are being done very well, and in other sectors, there's really a challenge. So to assist us in regulating fire in South Africa.
Tian, sorry, can you turn on your camera, please? It's just because of the recording, it's going to be best to have you in the presentation as well.
Sorry, I can do that.
We cannot hear you. You muted yourself, so it's unmuting and turning on the camera.
Right, how's that?
Great, great, great. Continue, please.
Okay, to assist us to create some sort of an order and sustainability as far as fire is concerned, we've got a very progressive National Fire Act in South Africa. And I mean, there are some major points which I've highlighted here, where the government, for example, say in the act that each landowner should have a boundary fire belt. Each landowner should have enough tools and equipment and trained people. Each landowner should prioritize high-risk areas. You are also in trouble when a fire leaves your property and cause damages, then you become liable. We are not allowed to make use of fire without having a permit or when the weather is bad. We are also obliged to help with firefighting. And in all this, our government only plays a regulating role. And the mandate to do fire management is on the people of South Africa. So I've already alluded to some of the realities in South Africa, but if we consider that more than 65% of South Africa contain vegetation that is fire dependent, and if we do not apply fire to these areas, then our ecosystems go down and we head for mega fires. Then we sit with areas that are very regulated. We sit in our rural areas again with very traditional African style of living where fire is used in an uncontrolled traditional way that disregard the law, that disregard boundaries, that disregard fire weather conditions. So it is very challenging to manage fire in our situation. And then, as I've also mentioned, fire management efforts comes down to private people and other fire statutory bodies. So, what do I see then is the pathway that we should follow towards a sustainable, resilient environment? Firstly, and I think Artemi alluded to this fact, is that you have to understand your environment, the ecological needs of the environment, and also the needs of people. And when you then use fire, and we don't have a choice, we have to use fire in South Africa, you have to address all these needs. Obviously, education is a very important part, and you have to not only educate people down the chain, but also people up the chain, because it's interesting to know that it's people that make decisions that do not understand the use of fire in the environment. Unfortunately, we have a law. That law has to be enforced. If we do not give teeth to the law, then all efforts to regulate fire will come to nothing. And I think there's also a paradigm that needs to be shifted. The understanding that fire is rather a science than just a normal activity. We have to change that. Something else that also comes to mind is that you find a lot of people that are very committed to fire management, but we've got different ideas on how fire should be applied and where it should be applied and where it should not be applied. So there's a lot of coordination and agreement that should take place. Keep in mind that I sit here with a forestry hat on, commercial forestry, because in South Africa, commercial forestry is one of the major land use activities. So I'm also going to speak to you from the perspective of a commercial forest owner. And if we talk about the use of fire, I would like to start off with this slide to indicate to you that we manage our fuels in our plantations by burning under our trees, under good conditions. We also burn open areas outside of our plantations on a regular basis, according to the fire regimes needed to make sure that our plantations are protected from outside and that biodiversity is maintained. After we've harvested and utilized some of our timber, even on steep slope, depending on the type of soil, we also burn our slash, the harvesting slash. But it is there's a very strong drive in South Africa also to find alternative ways to deal with fuel loads that assemble and build. So fire is not always the only means of dealing with this. Also because of the changing climate, the window which is suitable for burning is just becoming smaller and smaller, and we have to look at different ways to manage our fuel loads. Keeping in mind that South Africa is also divided into a summer rainfall and a winter rainfall area. And you find that in the high rainfall areas, remember South Africa is a dry country with an average rainfall of below 600 for the whole country. So in the high rainfall areas, usually along the coastline, that is where you will find a lot of vegetation. And we also sit with increasing, growing alien invasive problem, where you find that woody species that escaped from commercial plantations that were imported from other countries are invading natural vegetation. The natural vegetation being mostly grasses or savannas and fynbos. And what we do is to increase the fuel loads, the natural fuel loads in those areas tenfold. So that gives us a huge challenge, and alien infestation eradication is one of the big agenda points everywhere in South Africa. So if we do not do research, if we are not innovative and creative, then we miss a lot of the building blocks that goes towards sustainable fire landscape in South Africa. We must keep in mind that our landscapes are constantly changing. We've got weather changes, we've got land use changes, we've got more people that occupy the land, and therefore we've got no choice but to embrace the latest technologies. So I thought that I would maybe just then spend the rest of my presentation to share some of these technologies with you that we are using in the forest industry and other fire industries. There are some video clips. I will skip forward in some of the video clips. And I thought maybe you would find this interesting. So here go.
Farmers and landmen are fitting their tracer lines as they prepare for the massive undertaking of burning fireworks. Runaway fires in the dry winter months are an unavoidable hazard, as well as a property owner's worst nightmare. Every year for the past quarter of a century, Southern Africa has lost approximately 14,000 hectares of forested areas to these fires. The Cape has been subjected to devastating blazes. Firefighters in the Western Cape have responded to over 17,000 fires since December 2016. With its powerful X-Torque engine, the 580 market also equipped with air injection and a commercial-grade air filter that gives long operating time and trouble-free use. The updated 578 BTF has been tested.
Jan, sorry, maybe we skip the parts where it's describing the technology of the device.
Okay, we can do so.
Yeah.
So the wind blowers that we use, that the video clip was all about, is explaining how we use this new technology to replace people with fire beaters. So one wind blower can replace 6 to 8 people on a fire line, and is very easy to use once you are dealing with fires. One of our other technologies that we've developed in South Africa is a compressed air foam system. This is nothing that's new for urban firefighting, but it has never been successfully, to my knowledge, adapted for wildfire fighting. So we are very successful in what we have achieved with our compressed air foam systems. Obviously, you use less water, it's easier to handle your equipment. You don't lose pressure, and you multiply the volume of your fire suppressant by up to 10 times. Also very important is weather monitoring. Always important to whatever you do to keep the weather in consideration, but also it is important to remember that the weather forecast, and there are many platforms that provide us with the weather forecast, usually provide a regional forecast and they miss the local forecast. So there's this company, Vital Weather, that has developed a system that link many small weather stations in a particular area that anybody can access and utilize this weather to do planning. So if I can take you to one of the screens of this program, you will see that there is a long drop-down menu here of different regions or countries. And if you go and click on one of these, it opens up a whole province. In this case, I've opened up the Eastern Cape, and there are many regions in the Eastern Cape. One of those regions is called the Amatola, and you can see that there are 8 weather stations in the Amatola region, and you can see how the fire danger index is explained here, and you can see it's updated on a regular basis, and you can see if it's going up or down or if it's remaining. So this is obviously a very handy tool. They further provide a wealth of other information that can be used for research and other purposes. Record keeping is also one of the things that is very important if you need to plan ahead for fires. So while we usually get information from satellites, same as what Artemi has shown in his presentation, it is usually a very coarse representation with areas that are sometimes missed because they are only the huge areas that are picked up. So this new system that is developed is referred to as maps that really also pick up very small areas that was exposed to fire and can tell and paint the real picture. So if we move to this slide, you can see that what traditionally the conventional way in this particular landscape would have picked up this series of fires that has taken place in a particular time. And with a new technology, you can see that even down to a 10 square meter area, fires are picked up. And you can just imagine what advantage this holds for people that has to plan for fire. Other technology that we are
Sorry,
using
Tian, I think we might have to finish the presentation in the next 3-4 minutes. Is that okay?
Philippa, yes, if you say it is necessary, then I will skip to my last
Just
slide.
to give enough time for questions and answers.
I would maybe just like to stop at this last slide of mine to remind the people that in November this year we will have the FES 2026, the 5th conference that we will host in the Kruger National Park. The dates are 4 to 6 November. There is a pre and a post tour, and the people are really welcome to attend this. So if there any information needed about this, they are welcome also to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tian. Sorry for rushing you there. It's just to be sure that we have enough time for the question and answer. I see that there are 2 questions here right now. One from Bill Grayson saying, what role do Artemi and Tian see for grazing livestock as a tool for managing fire load? And I'm going to ask, because it's also from Grayson, what is the chemical constituent of the foam and does it leave any harmful residues in the soil? I guess maybe the first one could be Artemi and the second one Tian, or if Tian, you want to go straight away?
Can you just repeat the question for me, please, Philippa?
Yes, of course. So the first one is, what role do Artemi and Tian see for grazing livestock as a tool for managing fire load? And the other one is, what is the chemical constituent of the foam and does it leave any harmful residues in the soil?
Okay, I can start off if that's okay.
Yes.
We found in South Africa that certain areas where grazing is used, specifically in the moisture areas, fire is really necessary to remove the moribund sward. And usually a fast, hot fire at the end of winter is what is needed. In the drier areas, however, fire is not needed. And you have a longer fire return period of up to 5 years, as the grasses there tend to be more sweet and palatable, where in the high rainfall areas, the grasses are not always that palatable. We also make use of grazing systems in different parts of the country where we divide the grazing area into specific blocks, and then the cattle would be moved from block to block, and they would really graze the grass down to its roots, and they will then be moved to a next block, and the system will repeat itself. And in a year's time, they will be back at the first block. That sort of represents burning, and there's a lot of good yield that comes afterwards. The question about the foam, all the foams that we used are biodegradable. They are tested, and they've got no long-lasting effect on the soils. They've even been tested in swamp areas for the effect on amphibians and insects there. And although some of the results are not very clear at this stage, we are not allowed to use any chemicals with our water that is harmful to the environment.
Thank you very much. I don't know if this was cleared, but I'm going to ask Artemi to answer as well the question in respect to the grazing. Like, what would you be applying? So I'm going to repeat again, Artemi. What role do Artemi and Tian see for grazing livestock as a tool for managing fire load? If you could expand a little bit on that. You're muted, Artemi, sorry.
The use of herbivores is very relevant in the evolution of the planet, of the plants and the animals. And then what we did in many parts of the world is to remove the herbivores. Or in some places we promoted, when we were hunter-gatherers, to have more herbivores and concentrate in some herbivores. Some of them we were extinguished. We removed the carnivores in some places. We removed the megafauna in many parts of the world. And then humans, we changed that. Then now in many parts of the developed countries, and I'm already in many developing countries, we are abandoning the agriculture. We are concentrating agriculture, and then many rainfed agriculture is transformed now in forest. And this forest is out of control because there are no herbivores. And then it's creating a lot of biomass. And then the big herbivore is coming. The big herbivore is the fire. Then if we want to control the forest fire, in order that they will be not so dangerous for us as a human society, we need to use herbivores to reduce the amount of biomass. They are cheap, they contribute with food for the society, and they are natural. We need to regulate how much herbivores we need in the. We don't need wild herbivores. It can be, but we can have also domestic herbivores. And then to have these herbivores, in some places we need also the big herbivore, the that renew the vegetation, because not all the vegetation is easy to be palatable. In the Mediterranean, we have a lot of goats that they can eat almost everything. Okay.
If I can maybe also make another contribution there, you find in some places in South Africa where they are actually overgrazing, usually by domestic animals, which is really harmful to the environment. Because in areas that are fire dependent to renew the vegetation, you find that the vegetation is grazed to such an extent that the remaining vegetation cannot support a
Which is the
fire.
region, no,
So
coming
there
here.
we have to guard against overgrazing. Something else that we are also doing to encourage grazing in some areas is to spray molasses and water on grasses, and we would then put animals into a particular area, and then they would really graze high fuel loads that were undergrazed to a manageable size. Thank you.
So I guess the question is, it seems then that there's like these extremes about, like having too much biomass and no animals in the landscape and abandonment. And then on the other side, like having too much grazing, and then like deploring the soil out of, like species that are necessary. So for those practitioners that are looking for some insight, and of course this is potentially it is dependable on the different types of landscape. But where do you see, like, where could they find more information about where this balance is? How can this balance be found? About the amount of grazing, the types of grazers, like even potentially the periods of the year where you should, like, ideally do the grazing. How would you advise on this aspect?
Philippa, yeah. Again, in Africa, it's a challenge because a lot of the rural area are ruled by traditional land use, where the amount of cattle that you have is a reflection of your wealth. And cattle are not necessarily only farmed, to produce lots of meat and milk. So that makes it very difficult. There are, however, a lot of extension services that go out. And in some cases, it works fairly well, in other cases, not. If you go to the commercial farming areas, there are also very strict monitoring of overgrazing in those areas, and your commercial farmers are really well controlled by the Department of Agriculture to make sure that they do not overgraze. Information is freely available from our government departments, from universities that offer agricultural and other natural resource courses. But it is a challenge. I cannot argue something else.
Thank you. Artemi, do you want to come in and expand a little bit more as well? You are muted, Artemi.
The issue of the grazing is very clear. We need to establish a rate of grazing. For example, in the dehesas or Spanish dehesas or Portuguese montados, we know that we should not have more than 1 sheep per hectare. If not, you have too many. Then for what we need to do is to apply the science, make the measurements at the site in each biome, each ecosystem, each a region, which is the amount of grazing we need to have.
We have here a question of a colleague as well, like Florencia is asking, how do you think you could defend the idea of planned fires with public administrators that have to deal with public opinion against, planned fires and have fear, like of fires altogether? How do you think is, the strategy to potentially, try to change some minds about this?
Well, we obviously, sorry,
Go
Artemi.
ahead, Diana.
Thank you, Artemi. Well, obviously, communication is one of the, and information sharing is one of the most important ways to get the idea through to people. It's actually interesting to note that after very big fires where the livelihood of people were threatened, then everybody seems to listen. But after a couple of years, when nothing happens, then they forget. So it remains difficult also in that sense to control and to persuade people. And you would find some people in urban areas that are very, very against burning because of the smoke and the soot and so on. Where in the rural area, everybody is used to smoke, so burning is not an issue there. So there are different challenges in different areas also.
Artemi, and then I think we have to wrap up the webinar. Go.
Sorry?
Artemi, you can go.
Okay, well, to wrap up what we did today is one of things which is for me very important is that the audience and the managers and all the society will understand that fire is part of the natural ecosystems in the Earth planet. Except Antarctica, all the other biomes in the planet, they have fires. The recurrency, the frequency is different. It's 1 year in the savannas and it's 2,000 years in the tundra. But the fire exists. Second, that humans, we change it, the landscape, and we change it with fire. And fire can be seen and is a tool. And the societies, especially in the developing countries, we are far away from fire. We see fire and waste as an enemy. This is a big mistake. Has been used as a tool, and we can use as a tool. This is because use prescribed fires should be recovered. There is another issue, is that the knowledge about fire is lost in the society. Is not in the curricula of the students, not in the high school, not in the primary school, not at the university, except in some few majors. And then this we need to recover to show that part of the ecosystems in the planet, they are dependent on fire. And then we need to communicate that, is the last question we saw. And especially one key issue is that we know still very little about fire frequency, fire recurrency, fire history, fire impact on soils, on vegetation, on fauna. The ecologists are always a little bit in front, but we need to put a lot of money from our governments, our administration, to research more.
I can maybe also add to what Artemi is saying, and I totally agree with the point that you make that we should take education down to school level. But I also sometimes get the idea it's that our leadership are generally uninformed and uneducated about the importance of fire. So we always go back to the person on the ground, and on the ground quite often people do understand a lot about fires, but it's the decision makers that quite often miss the point.
Yeah, related to this, we are a group of scientists that we are, for already more than 10 years, we are moving in the direction that not only do science, also to disseminate. This is because we organize congresses, like the one that Tian is organizing in the Kruger Park in South Africa, and which we will share our ideas, our knowledge, the scientists, with the society, and especially with the managers of the park. Then if anybody wants to join us, it's a wonderful Congress with a pre- and post-conference tour that are organized by Tian.
Yes, there
Thank
will
you
also
very
be...
much. Thank
Sorry,
you very much. We have
Philippa,
2 minutes to
on
go
this
ahead, Tian.
congress,
Go ahead.
Sorry, on this congress, there will also be one of the days will be dedicated to an expo where all these technologies that I wanted to include will be there. So there will be new technologies, interesting technologies, and I think that will also be very valuable if people are interested in that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all of the information, all the insight. I have both of your emails here. I'm going to share it like with the group, but I will also say like if you have any further questions, like also for Eurosite, if you would like us to do anything more, like in this realm of, like fire prevention or fire management. Like you have seen, we didn't have enough time to go through everything in an hour. So if the audience would, like request some specific themes to be a bit more expanded, we could definitely organize another webinar. And if you would have, like expectations or aspirations of like, other types of webinars, please, like let us know, because we are here to also, like contribute to a bit of this dissemination towards, like better fire management, but in other, like in other fields. Check out all of the all of the information that exists on the Eurosite webpage on YouTube, and I'm sure like you'll like what you'll see. I'm going to pass on now to Zofia. We are really like on time to close this webinar. For my side, like thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Philippa. Yeah, just very quickly, thank you all for joining. I would really like to thank Artemi and Tian as well. Also, Philippa and Florencia, thank you for helping the moderation and everything. Yeah, for the attendees, I have already sent you some information to the chat. If you are interested in Eurosite, please check out our website. We're also on social media, so you can also follow us there. And in terms of this webinar, we will contact you about the recording, also the presentations. So don't be afraid that they were a bit long and we couldn't cover everything. You will be able to catch up. And yes, as Philippa said, if you have any ideas or advice in terms of upcoming webinars, you have a topic, please feel free to reach out. And yeah, we are looking forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Thank you and have a nice afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Nice
Thank
afternoon
you.
also.